And since I'm not actually stitching these out, I'm just going to let them default to 8 by 8 tonight so that you can see how we create the design. And then I click OK to display the artwork on my screen. Now, here I have my block, and it is 8 inches by 8 inches, which is the default. And if I select the entire block by either hitting Control A for select all, or dragging a box around the whole block to select it all, then up in the top left-hand corner again, right up here, I'm going to click on the Workflow tool. This brings up our Workflow dialog box. Now, you'll see that the patches have all been numbered, 1 through 6, and the units are over here on the side. I have created in my software, just for things like this, for me to play with, an extra large hoop that is, I think it's 15 by 15, just so I'm not limited by hoop size, just to play with and see how I would build it and all of that. So that's the hoop I'm going to use tonight. Now, if I click Auto Build at this point, it builds my block. I just completed digitizing that design. I can tell because it's divided my patches into units. And if I click on the lower right-hand corner, I can see here with Preview that it has created 2 different designs for me to stitch to build this block. One is the base with the sky, the trunk, and the sky, then the body of the tree and the sky background. Well, I know I can build this block in one hooping. So let's go back, click off of Preview, and close the dialog box. And I'm going to show you a feature in the software that we really haven't talked about before. And that is our reorder function. Now, what reorder does is allows me to number each of the patches. For those of you who have done, when you get a pattern, it is numbered consecutively in the order in which you will stitch the patch to the foundation. So if you're familiar with that, this will be very simple for you. If you've never done foundation piecing, this is the order in which we're going to stitch them. And as we go through tonight, I'm going to show you what to look at and what order things can flow in, and either to do larger blocks in smaller units or put a whole block together in one hooping. I want to go over first to the sequence view, and we're going to get a little elemental here. I'm going to expand my artwork. You see I have piece 1 is the main tree, the triangle part. Piece 2 is the trunk. Piece 3 is the background on the top left-hand side, the top right, bottom left, bottom right. Well, those index numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is not at all the order in which I would stitch out this tree. So let's renumber them. These numbers, to the best of my knowledge, come from the way that the artwork was created for this block. So this was created first, then the trunk, and then they put in the pink background. So what I'm going to do is change those numbers by clicking on the reorder. Now, if I look at this, I can say if I do the bottom first, if I make this piece number 1, piece number 2, and piece number 3, and the tree is piece number 4, I can stitch that down and flip it, and I've completely covered all the raw edges of the top of that bottom section. So I'll make that 4. Then I can add 5 and 6 to either side of it. So you see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, you could have done that 1, 2, 3. You could have done it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But this one has to be number 4 after you finish the bottom. And then you put on either side. Okay, let's see what happens now. I'm going to right-click, and if I expand, let's expand everything in the sequence view, you'll see that my pieces are now in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, that's what that function does. It just reorders the sequence of the artwork. Now, I can select the entire block, click on my workflow tool up in the top left-hand corner, and when I look at my block, now these are in the sequence that I want them to be in order to build the block. Let's try and do an auto build and see what happens. Click auto build. And I get kind of a similar look to what I had before. Let's preview the blocks. And again, I've got it in 2 different designs. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go back and build it myself. Let's click on preview. Then if I just click anywhere over here, I can right click and select reset. So now we're back in number order. I'm going to do this several times tonight, so if you don't get it the first time, you will as we go through the evening, and if you don't, we'll get it to you on the forum. What I'm going to do first is click on piece 1. You see it's highlighted with the stripes on it. Then hold down my control key and click on piece 2. Right-click and say group those 2 pieces. Then hold my control key down and click on piece 3, right-click, and group that piece with it. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, and 3 across the bottom, the trunk and the sky on either side. But let's keep going. I'm going to hold my control key down so I can add number 4 to that. Right-click and say group. And number 5, right-click and say group. Now, I don't need to do number 6 because that's the last patch in here, and you'll see why in just a second. If I click preview now, I have a single design that does the entire tree. Piece 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. All right, it's that simple. Now, let's go back. Oops, sorry. And see how our units look. So here was the first 2 that I grouped, 1 to 2. Then I added 3, then I added 4, then I added 5, and all that's left was 6, which matches up with the original unit. So this is how I've built this tree, all in one hooping. Okay, let's do that again. And I'm going to, let's do a different design. Okay, that one's pretty simple. Let's open up a new page and go back to our select block in the top left-hand corner. And this time, instead of paper tree 1, let's do big sky tree number 1. Okay, this has a few more pieces to it. Similar concept. I'm going to select it, let it default to 8 inches by 8 inches, because right now I'm just playing with designing a pattern and getting it all to go on one piece. Now, this one's a little different. There's ground here. There's pieces around the side. Other than that, here's my basic block in the middle. If I expand all of the colors over here by saying expand all, piece number 1 is the trunk, then 2 is the sky, and they're all grouped together by color, okay, but that's not the way I'm actually going to stitch it. So let's renumber it. I'm going to go to reorder, and first I'm going to start here with my base. I'm going to click 1, 2, 3. Then I can either go up here to the green tree for 4 or down here for 4. Either one. Whoops. Let's do that again. I right-clicked instead of left-clicked. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. then what pieces would be added next? Not these, because this piece isn't on, or this piece, so we'll do these pieces next. Then we have to do this top piece. Then we can do either one of the side pieces. In either order, it doesn't matter. When I'm finished, I right-click. I select the entire block by dragging a box around it or clicking Control-A. Go to the Workflow tool up here in the top left-hand corner. And there's my block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Let's see how it would build the block if it was going to do it with the auto build. I'm going to click. It's divided it up into different units, and I can't really tell from that myself what that is. So I look at the preview, and I see I've got 3 designs. Again, it wants to do the base by itself, the tree with the 2 sides. Then it puts those together with the top and the bottom, and then the 2 extra pieces of sky on the sides of them. I can do this all in one hooping. So let's go back. I'm going to click Reset. Because I already have these numbered in the order that I want to stitch it or add the pieces, it makes it very easy to combine the units. I select 2 units first. Right-click and group. Now, you all can play with this because you could select 3 units because those all really actually work together. In fact, let's just go on and then we'll go back and I'll show you that on another one. We're going to get progressively more complicated, but as you play with this, you're going to see how it works. I'm holding the Control key down. I select patch number 3, right-click, and group. Patch number 4, right-click, group. Patch number 5. I'm holding down the Control key this whole time. Group. Patch number 6, group. Patch number 7, right-click, group. Patch number 8, right-click, group. Patch number 9, right-click, group. And patch number 10 will be the last patch. Let's preview that design. And there we go. All in one design in one hooping. How easy was that? Let's look and see what our hierarchy looks like. It looks just like that. Now, I could drag pieces, but with all my experimenting, I found this is the easiest way to build that. If you start with 2 units, add a unit, add a unit, add a unit. And since this can all go in one hooping, it's good to go. All I need to do at this point is click Preview, then click Save. It will save my file in the format for my machine and give me all of my instructions to stitch this design. So, Dory, do we have any questions so far? I think I might take that as a
There we go. There we go. I got lost. I got lost.
That's okay.
Number 1, Linda said a big thank you to you, Tamara. She asked this question on the forum that showed on the webinar tonight. Understand now how to change multiple hoopings to one. Excellent. Okay. We do have a gal who's a little bit lost, and she wants to know, weren't they already in one design except when we did the auto build?
The auto build put it into 3 designs. Here, let's go back to preview. I'm going to just right click and say reset and click auto build.
Explain why you would want to group, Tamara.
Because I don't want to hoop this 3 times. Sometimes I have to, but because I do have a knowledge of, and a lot of people do, of paper piecing, to me it's a puzzle and a challenge. How many pieces can I get in a single hooping? I want to do, instead of doing these 3 and these 3 in the first hooping, then putting those together with the top piece and the bottom piece in the second hooping, and then design 3, adding the 3 sides on it, I would rather do it the way I did and group them together. And this time I'm going to do 3 of them. And I want y'all to play with this because you will see, and let's add 4, let's just add 4. And see how, because it's it's fun. It's kind of a challenge. Can you beat the system? Kind of. I've never been a rebel until I got to be an adult. But it lets you, let's put 6 and 7 together in that because it doesn't matter which one goes first. We'll group those, then 8 and group 9 and 10. And oops, now I can't do both of them because I don't want to make that a separate unit or it will make it a separate design, okay? So I want to take this unit and add 9 and group and then preview. And it's all in one design. So I only have to hoop one time if it will all fit in my hoop.
So this means that you can hoop forever.
So, oh, yeah, if your hoop is big enough. Keep going. All right. So now let's take a look at a little bit different scenario, okay? That complicated a little bit or made it a little bit more intricate. Let's open up a new file. Let's go back to our block and let's, you can see here, if I do this Christmas tree, can you see how I'm going to do the base? Then I'll do this one, this one, this one, this one, and then the 2 sides. It's very, very similar, okay? So that's how the trees are done, and a lot of different designs. Another one that's very similar to that is if you look at the foundation boats, all right? In fact, let's pull up this one, boat number 1. Now, the way I would want to put this together is I'm going to go, first of all, let's select the whole thing and go to the workflow tool and auto build it. Now, let's look at our units. I have a feeling this is going to be 2 different designs. It is. So here's the top with the sails and the sky. Then this is the base of the ship, separate, because you see these seam allowances aren't overlapped. Then the second one puts all 3 of those together with the bottom. Let's go back to the preview. Now, the way I would want to do that is to close out of here. I could sort that or redo it in here, but the easiest way that I found to do it after a lot of experimentation is to just come back up here and say, if I was going to stitch this, what would I want to stitch to what? Select my reorder tool and click 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. Now, I can click 8, 9, and 10, and then 11. Okay? So it goes in sequence. I'm overlapping the raw edges each time. Okay? So this is another one I can do all in one hooping. I right-click when I'm done, select the entire design, and click on my workflow. And now that they're in order, it's easy to group 1 to 2 and group, add 3, right-click, group. And actually, I can just, with holding my control key down, right-click on 4 and say group, 5, group, 6, group, 7, group, 8, group, 9, group, 10, group, and leave 11 because that ties it back to the main unit. I don't know of a better way to explain that. It's just going to ask you for a new unit, and when it does, don't make one because all of this will go in a single unit. And there you go. One design for that whole boat. How fun is that? Okay. Now, These are all ones that could be done in a single hooping. We can't always do something in a single hooping. Sometimes we have to use more than one. And let's look at, or stitch them together manually, depending on the size or something like that. I'm going to create a new design now. And let's go to back to our blocks, and I'm going to go to the flying geese. Now, geese blocks are easy to see. You know, here, flying geese number 6, this one's easy to do in a single hooping because I'm going to start with, I always want to look at what's going to cover up the seams that I just did. So I'm going to click Reorder. This is 1, 2, 3. Then if I do this patch over it, stitch and flip, that'll be 4, 5, 6. Right-click to tell it I'm done. Select the whole block. Click on my workflow tool up here in the top left-hand corner. And let's see what auto build does here. See, it's dividing it into 2 units for me. Let's preview. Yeah, so see, I can do this all in one. I don't have to do it in 2. So until we've got the software trained to look a little bit deeper, here's how you get around that. Go back to preview. You can just right-click anywhere and say reset. I'm going to do 1 to 2 to, let's try this. I haven't done this yet. 3, right-click and say group. Then 4, group. I'm just going to leave 5 and 6. Let's play a little bit here. I want to teach you how to play with it and see what it does. Now let's preview. All in one design. I'm so glad that worked. So it knows that they're the last part. Let's look at the hierarchy here. Here's 1, 2, and 3, then 4, then 5 and 6. Okay, so it's kind of that kind of outline look, the hierarchy, which can be a little bit cryptic, but play with it and see how it works. Very simple. Now, let's take this one a step further. I'm going to close out of here, click on a new design. Let's go back into the geese blocks, and this time I'm going to do Dutchman's Puzzle. Okay, so it's like this 4 times. So I click OK, bring that up. Now, this is not going to be able to be done in a single hooping because if we divide it into 4 sections, here's 1, here's 2, 3, and 4, or however you want to do that. I can do any of these 2 together, but ultimately, like for example, here, let me select. If I do these bottom 2 together, I can do that, but I can't connect them to the top. I have to make this in 2 hoopings because it's got a line going all the way through it. And you'll see what I mean as I go on. And if y'all can give me better terminology for explaining this, I am open to suggestions. So this is how I'm going to do this one. I'm going to go to my reorder tool, and I'm going to say, let's do this. I'm just going to do 1/2 of it at a time. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. No, I'm not. So that's not going to work. Backspace. I've got to start with 1 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I can do this one because it's going to cover up my raw seams here. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. Now, I can select just that part of the block in case I'm doing a bigger block. Actually, let's do this. I'm sorry. Let's select the whole block and go to the workflow tool here. All right. And let's auto build. Now, because I'm using this extra large hoop that doesn't exist in my hoop stash, that's like 15 inches, I don't have to worry about it not fitting in the hoop. I just want to see what it comes up with to create this block. And it's thinking about it. A lot.
I can almost hear it tapping its little foot.
I know, me too. I feel like the Jeopardy song is going off in my head in the background.
I was asked, are you going to be taking a class on this software at the Sewing Expo in Cleveland, Ohio in March?
Oh, cool.
Are you?
Oh, me? Oh, no, I'd love to, but no, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Although there are some, we have a really good dealer in Cleveland that knows a lot about the software and has some really good people that work for her, and they may be doing classes. I'm not myself, although I've been to the Cleveland Expo and it's great fun. And that would be a great question to ask on the forum, and I'll see if I can find out and answer that, or on Facebook, either one. Okay, let's preview this and see how many designs it broke this up into. Oh, I don't like this at all. 4 designs. Okay, and then eventually it puts them all together. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to just select this top half, because I know that's one part of the design, and you know what? The other half will look exactly like this half, so I just need to stitch this one half twice. Or I could do it in 4ths and stitch it 4 times, but if I can put 2 of them in one hooping, I'm going to do that. So let's click on the workflow tool. Now I'm going to auto build, and again it divided it into multiple segments that it did those 2, then these 2, then it puts all of them together. Okay, I could do all this in one. So let's go back and reset. And again, all I have to do is hold down my control key, click 1, 2, and 3, right click, group, add 4, let's try 4, 5, and 6, right click and group, 7, 8, 9, right click and group, and we'll leave 10, 11, and 12. Let's see if that built it for us. Ooh, no it didn't. Okay, let's try that again then. Reset. We'll do 1 to 2 and group. You can always do it this way and it will build it. It just takes a little bit longer. So right click group, 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 and the last one. And the cheese stands alone. What game was that? Okay, now preview, and there it is, all in one hooping. If I do that twice and then sew these 2 sections together, I've got the full block, and I've only done 2 hoopings.
I really like that. Now, can I use that with silks?
You can use it with anything you want to, honey.
Well,
you really could. Okay.
I want to know, that would mean that I would be spot on perfect.
You would be spot on perfect. Your points are going to be perfect and all of that. So it's just a matter of building the block. And, you know, let me show you another one along the same lines with the flying geese. I'm going to open this one. And let's look at circling geese. Oh, number 3. Okay. Oh, this is a little bit different, and I'll show you why.
Okay, before you go there, I have one quickie question, though.
Yes, ma'am?
If you don't combine them and you decide to stitch out each separate design, how do they line up?
Oh, they line up just fine because you're matching the raw edges. I just want I'm just trying to show you a quick way to do it where you don't have to hoop as much.
Super.
Okay, that's my goal here. Now, here's something that you need to watch for. Typically, if you have a square in the middle, in this case, we don't have a problem because we've got a straight line that goes all the way through. Okay, so I can pull out this center section either this way, do all of this together, this, and then sew this section to this section to this section, if you're with me. Okay, that would be an easy way to do it because very simply, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you would do it in 3 sections and then sew the 3 of them together. Now, you have to be careful about these kinds of designs. If you can't get a straight line, and it doesn't have to be perpendicular straight, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. Let me open up a new page. I've got some blocks that I pulled from my quilt embellisher that I wanted to show you that we didn't put in here. Here's one of them, and I'll show you why it wasn't included. Because I don't have a straight line going through this block in any direction. I would have to do a Y seam. Y seams in the hoop are a little tricky. Could I piece this in the hoop? Yes. Would I have to do part of it manually? And by manually, I don't mean the hand word. I mean with the sewing machine. I mean, I can certainly do all of these angle blocks together, but the reason that this block is not in my block piecer, but it's in my quilt embellisher, is because you've got this, none of it goes straight through the block in any direction, if that makes sense. So I can't divide this up into thirds or halves. It's going to be a Y seam, either here or here or here or here, and that is very difficult to do in the hoop. But I could certainly do this one, and how would I do that? Yeah, that one's going to be tricky. That's very difficult to do in the hoop. I could do the 4 outer sections and then manually stitch it. But there are some other ones that you can do, and this is how you determine, whoops, I meant to do a new page, sorry. This is how you determine how you do it. Here's one, this wacky star. Now, this one has lines that go straight through that I can dissect that block. So I could take this corner right, whoops, I have to ungroup it because I brought it in from my design library. I could take this corner and say, I want to build that section. And come over here. I could click Auto Build. Okay, it didn't find an automatic solution, but it's easy enough to do one. Actually, let's close that and renumber it. All right, so click on my Reorder icon up at the top. I want to go from 1 to 2. Am I doing that right? Yeah, to 3, and then 4 would cover up that seam. Okay, so right-click to finish. I'm going to take that one section and click on my workflow units and do 1 and 2, right-click, group, right-click on 3, group. I'm done. Let's preview. And now that's all done in one section. Easy enough, right? I could even add it to this section and do half of the star, even though each one of these 4 quadrants or quarters of it, they're not really an equal quarter, are different. I could put any 2 of them, well, any 2, I could put this to this one and this one to this one, you just have to look at where your overlap is. If you're completely covering up a seam and then flipping it, you can do that. Okay? So that's another way. So Dory, do we have questions? Have I lost people on that?
No, I don't think you lost them so much as, can you put this block together in a
Sure.
group of 4 so that we could see what the ultimate...
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's do it this way. I'm going to select this side. Actually, let me renumber it first, because that really does make it simpler, this renumbering function. And let's look at our sequence tool here. I'm going to say this is 1 to 2 to 3, and then 4 covers up this seam. Then 5 covers up these raw edges. I can't do it that way. Okay, y'all are following my thought process here. Let's go back, and 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Here's the way I've got to go, and you just have to play with blocks to figure that out. Here's 5. No, I can't do that either. So maybe I'll do each one of these separately and then stitch all 4 of them together. Okay? Because then all I have to match is the corner seams here. In my in the manual, I've done this with a similar star, although it was the same in all 4 corners. But let me show you how I did that. If you pull up the My Block Piecer manual and go to Block Assembly and do a combination. Okay. Now, here's one where I did a woven star, and I could do 2 quarters in a hooping. Although they're not attached to each other, I could stitch 2 quarters of that star. Then I trim away the excess stabilizer. Here are my 4 quarters. Okay. Then I'm just going to use a sewing machine, because this star was a 12-inch block, and stitch those together. So I stitch these 2 and these 2, and then here is where I stitch this to this. And it comes out with a perfect star. So I only have to match those that one intersection.
That makes excellent sense.
Okay, great. So anytime you can divide your block into, like a 9 patch is easily divided into 3 different rows. This one's easily divided into 4 pieces. Let me show you another one. We've talked before about, and you've probably noticed, that in the sequences or the blocks that are in the block library, there aren't any curved lines. The reason for that is piecing a curved line in the hoop is just darn near impossible. Some of us have enough trouble piecing that a curve to a curve just on our sewing machine. But what I can do is I can piece every single straight line in here, okay? And let me show you. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different segments to it. If you'll notice here, oh, let me ungroup it. Here is one segment. I've got 6 of those. And then you could add 3 together, and these 3, and then stitch it down the center. So if I do this one segment, I'm going to renumber it. I'm going to start with this piece, add these 2 pieces to the edges, so I've got a triangle. Then I can add these in any sequence I want to it. Now, yes, this is a curved edge, but I could absolutely applique this star onto a flat piece of fabric. I can do applique curved lines in the hoop. I just can't piece the curved lines in the hoop. So now let me take this section that we just did. I'm going to select it and go to my workflow tool. And I'm going to say I want to do piece 1 to 2 and group that. Right click on 3, group that one to it. 4, group. Right click on 5, group. And now let's preview. And there, I've done that wonky 1/6 of the pie in one hooping. I do that 6 times, and I could probably fit 6 of those in a single hoop, but depending on the size, and then sew them together with my sewing machine. So easy, and I'm not dealing with the bias edges are simple because I'm not sewing them on my sewing machine. I've got foundation underneath it, stabilizer of some sort, and just putting the pie together when I'm done. Does that make sense?
That does to me. We do have one other quickie question.
Okay.
Do you do your piecing on no-show mesh?
You know, you can do your piecing on no-show mesh. I like to, which is one of the reasons I like to get as much in a single hooping as I can. I don't like a buildup of stabilizer. This one, you know, I certainly would do on no-show mesh. I could because it doesn't add a lot of bulk. It's very thin, and it doesn't have a bias to it. So it will keep these bias edges from stretching and getting distorted. Another one that I like is a wash-away tearaway or a soft tearaway. I am never going to remove the stabilizer from under my piecing before I put my whole quilt together and quilt it. Because if I do that, I'm pulling, I risk pulling on those seams. Unlike foundation piecing, I'm not using a really small seam allowance to do this. I'll do, you know, a 2.5 or whatever the default is for it. And because I don't have to use, on foundation piecing or paper piecing, we typically use a very small stitch length so that we can tear the paper away. Well, we don't need to tear the paper away because we're not using paper, and it's not going to add bulk to the quilt. So I like something like a no-show mesh or a wash-away tearaway, and then once that quilt is washed, you don't even know anything was in there. You have a little fiber left next to the batting and the fabric, and no one knows the difference. So it's very, very simple to do. Those are my two of choice. I don't want to use a stiff tearaway because then I feel the need to tear that out. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Now, let me show you another idea here. I'm going to go to Backdrop Tool, and this is a design that I've been playing with. Okay, so here's a block that I got from somewhere else. Now, it's very easy to create all of these pieces, and I'm not going to do the curved seams in the hoop, but I can do these star parts. Okay, so and we've gone through this before, but just to remind you, I'm going to select, let's just do, it doesn't matter which shape. I just want to make sure it's filled. Click Apply so that you can see it. I'll select, we'll just use the blue. And, of course, the magic wand, because if I have a magic wand, I'm going to use it. And I'm just going to click here, then right-click on yellow, click my yellow points. Okay. So now I've got those pieces set up. I can select those just by doing my selection. Click on my workflow tool. It brings those over for me. Now, these aren't in sequence, right? So let's go back and put them in sequence. I'm going to close because that makes it easier. I'm going to say, so piece 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. Right-click to set those numbers. If I look in my sequence view, you'll see, expand it. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, I'm going to select all of those. Let's go back to our workflow tool. We can try to auto-build it, but it doesn't like it, so that's all right. We know how to build it ourselves. I just select piece 1 and piece 2, right-click group, add piece 3, group, piece 4, group, piece 5, group, piece 6, group, and let's preview. All of that is done in the hoop, and those points are going to be perfect, okay? Perfect and easily done. That's the hardest part of this block, is doing the sun rays that come out from it. Now I've got different options here. I can continue to build this entire block. For example, let's select the orange color and go back up and pick up my magic wand, my artwork, and I'm going to click on the orange pieces. I can also, we'll make these a little purpler. Do the purple here and the yellow points here. Now I would do this second set of the rays coming out from that the same way I did the blue and yellow ones. Okay, so I would piece those in the hoop. But you know what? Here's the great thing that my block piecer does for us. I'm going to select all of that and go to my cutting tool. Now I'm going to cut those curved pieces from templates or on a silhouette or a scanning cutter or an automatic cutter, something, and they're going to be perfect and so easy to do. And even though I may not be piecing them all in the hoop, I'll have the perfect size piece that I won't have distorted, you know, by trying to cut it or fit it, and be able to sew that directly to the other pieces in the block. And then create 4 of those, and I'm good to make a whole big New York starburst or sunrise, whatever it's called. So use the tools that you've got in the software to create the parts you need to create, you know, or piece this part, cut these parts, and then you can sew the rest with your sewing machine. Does that make sense, Dory?
It does, and I want you to know, can I pencil you in for next Thursday at my house? I have a ski cut that hasn't been used yet.
Oh, fun. Yeah, and you know, the cutters, for those of y'all who have one, and I'll tell you what, it's such a fun tool. If you got one for Christmas or you didn't, get what you wanted for Christmas. If I'm going to do 4 of these, I'm going to come down here in my cutting section and change my repeats to 4. Click Apply. Then I don't want to do this in my hoop. I could print it on paper, and actually our print and stick template paper is awesome for this. Although I would probably just do 1 repeat and stack up 4 layers of paper and use a rotary cutter and do it that way. But if I want to go into my Brother Scan and Cut or my Silhouette, select a mat size, and then it will put those together for me. When I save them, I'll save it in, you know, as the name and in the format that I need for my cutter. like FCM for the Brother Scan and Cut, or SVG for the silhouette, or whatever format your cutter takes. If you've got a big plotter, you can do that. And I can take that file directly to my cutter and have them cut those weirdo pieces for me. I love that. Okay, Dory, do we have any other questions? We're getting kind of toward the end of it here.
We don't. You answered everybody's question. I have heard more applauses for this. This has been wonderful. I am ready to pull out my scan and cut, which I got for Christmas, and I have ignored.
Well, have fun with that. And I do, you know, here's what I would like to challenge everybody to do. If you have trouble with a block, or if you figure out a block and a way to do it, post it on our Facebook. We do have a closed group on Facebook. All you have to do is ask to join, and Stephanie Smith will take care of that for us, and you can converse with us. I would love to see what blocks you come up with and what you do using patterns not just from the software, but other ones that you find, or from EQ7, or printed patterns that you have, or magazines. You can use this for anything. See how it helps you with your piecing. I would love to see that. Also on the forum, for those of you who haven't gone in and played with the forum, it's a great resource with lots of information, and it is monitored by people. There's no spam, there's no advertising in there. It's just people who want to help you with what you're doing and answer your questions. And if you have a block that you get stuck with, post it, and we'll help you figure it out. I don't know. I think my inner nerd is coming out, because I love to do this. I'll sit down while I'm watching television and play with different blocks, and how could I put that together, in different ways to do it. And if you get frustrated, don't let it overcome you. Just give us a shout, and we will be happy to help you with that. And we look forward to working with you with My Block Piecer. Have fun. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, and try and stay warm. I know a lot of the country's getting zapped this week with really cold weather. So thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Miss Dory.
Well, I thank you all for coming. I encourage you to be safe on the roads. Have a good evening, and don't forget to look back on the webinar page in order to find this recording all saved for you by tomorrow. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Good night.